Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's me, Mr. Ty. Before we get too far in the video, heads up, I've had hiccups I've had hiccups now for 3 days straight, and I get them occasionally here and there, probably about twice a month. And when it happens, it makes it really hard for me to make videos without stuttering or randomly pausing. So just bear with me, guys, and tell me some of your remedies in the comments on how to get rid of hiccups, because I think I've tried literally everything. And at this point, I am going a little crazy. But without any further ado, sorry this video is slightly late. These hiccups have been getting to me. And let's review the Willie frame, or the Dolphin one. So yeah, let's get into it. This is the Dolphin 1 frame, otherwise known as the Wild Willie frame. Comes in at 126.10 grams. With the standoff screws included, it comes out to 130.87 grams. It is slightly lighter than the SKITZO frame with the decals on it. Has 5mm thick arms, 2mm thick plates. All the plates are the same thickness. Comes with 27mm standoffs. Its camera mount goes from what looks like 10 degrees up to about 55 degrees. Has 10.9 hardness steel screws. Uses 13 press nuts to hold the arms in place. No nuts needed. 238mm diagonally. 185mm across. 155mm front to back.
Oh yeah, and did I mention it's only $35 and has a lifetime warranty?
So let's go ahead and build one of these out for you. This frame comes in a plastic bag. In older variations of this frame, when it was at its full price, it did have a little cardboard cutout stating what frame it was. First thing you're going to see inside the bag is this little anti-static sealed bag full of all your hardware. After that, we're just going to have all the carbon pieces. So the first thing I want to point out is that all the arms are identical. Unlike on the SKITZO frame, where you're going to have an A and a B arm, and unlike on the ARC1 frame, where they all interlock, and if you have a stretched X or the hybrid, you have pretty much an A and a B arm, where one has a lobe and one doesn't. All of these arms can be interswapped with each other, which I highly recommend they should do to the ARC1 frame moving forward, and I really like that that is how this frame is designed. Now inside the bag of hardware, you're going to have a whole bunch of these soft mounts. From my experience, it's a random number each time, but you at least have 12. You'll also get 5 of the 12mm screws, 4 of the 10mm screws, and a whole bunch of 6mm screws, as well as 25mm screws for the flight stack. So this frame is a little bit more complicated to put together the first time than most frames. There's a lot of different size stuff, and this frame does use what is called interference fit, which essentially means that the parts are designed to not fit together exactly. They have friction between them, which creates a very snug fit, and it means that you shouldn't have to use any Loctite on the screws that hold the arms and the stack together. You're going to want to grab 4 of your 12mm screws and go ahead and slip that right into this plate, putting them in the 4 holes on the outer side of the X. Then you're going to want to flip your plate upside down, and then take your arms one at a time and slide them in over that screw. It should look like this when you're done. Now you're going to take your sandwich plate with the press nuts and stick that right on top. And then do your best to flip the entire thing over without letting those screws fall out. Then lay it flat on the table again. From here, you can take your 2mm driver and put the screws the rest of the way in. I recommend screwing it down to where it's tight, but not to where there's no give. You just barely want them screwed in at this point right now. Now you're going to take your 10mm screws, which are slightly shorter than the ones you just put in, and you're going to put it in these holes right here. Now, depending on if you're doing a 20x20 or a 30x30 stack, depends on if you're going to be putting it on the inner or outer holes. Since we're doing a 30x30, we're going to be putting these on the inner holes. Now comes into play that interference fit I was talking about. Wild Willie designed this frame actually quite ingeniously in my opinion. He has a 5th 12mm screw which goes right in the center. Essentially, when this screw gets screwed all the way in, the carbon arms, and I don't know if you can see that, but I'll try to take a picture. The carbon arms are sticking over that hole slightly. And when you screw this screw all the way in, it pushes all those arms out against the other screws, which keeps them from vibrating out while you fly. The first time you put this screw in is going to be extremely difficult. You're going to have to push down on it and give it quite a bit of pressure, and it might not take the first time. You might even want to try screwing it in from the top right here all the way through and then unscrewing it if you're not able to get it started the way I just did. Once you have that screw in, you can go ahead and tighten down the rest of your screws. Now that we have the bottom plate with the arms assembled, let's work on assembling the top plate to the camera mount. So first, you're going to take your side plate and you're going to take one of these little slanted pieces. God, I hate hiccups. You're going to take one of these little slanted pieces, and you're going to take 2 of these screws, the 6mm ones, and you're going to stick it right through like that, and like that. Then you're going to go ahead and screw on 2 of your 27mm standoffs. From here, you're going to go ahead and take your top plate, and as you can see, there is a cutout here and a notch there. Those fit right here and here. The notch is going to go right in there, and the cutout is going to slide right into that cutout, like so. Once you line that up, you can go ahead and take your second camera plate and do the same thing on the other side. Then you can lay it flat on the table, or however is comfortable for you. Take your other slanted GoPro mount and put the 2 screws in it. Then try to line it up to the best of your ability. This is the hardest part about putting this frame together. And go ahead and get those screws started, but don't go all the way tight. Just until they grab. Then you're going to go ahead and take this little piece of carbon and put it right on the top. You can see that there's 2 notches cut out on this top plate. This is, in my opinion, the weakest part of the drone, and a lot of people are replacing this whole up part right here with a 3D printed part from Brain 3D. You can also find them on Thingiverse. However, the Brain 3D print my buddy has, and the quality is amazing. I would highly recommend going and picking that one up if you don't have a 3D printer. Once you have that sandwiched in between there, you can go ahead and tighten these screws the rest of the way down. And there you go. Now you have the camera cage and the top plate assembled. I don't know which way this little bit's supposed to go. It can go in both ways. I put it in this way because that way it looks more like a W. This looks more like an M. However, I feel like this will give you a little bit more support when you mount it this way, but that's really preference. And I think most people aren't even going to be using this top plate. They're going to be using that 3D printed part I was talking about. From here, you're just going to take this guy and stick it right into these slots after you put the standoffs on the bottom plate. So the standoffs, in my opinion, is one of the biggest places that they proved on this Freestyle frame. Most Freestyle frames use an 8 standoff mounting hole pattern. However, Wild Willie wanted to use the fewest amount of standoffs possible, and I think he came up with a really great solution here. I do feel that this is as strong as the SKITZO frame, at least the standoffs are. The arms I don't believe are as strong, but the way that the plates are mounted together I do believe is just as strong, and it does cut down weight ever so slightly. Most of that weight is added back in on this whole little camera design thing. However, this frame comes in almost the same way as the SKITZO frame and has a lot more functionality to it. So what you're going to do is you're going to line up these little notches. And once those are all lined up, you can just go ahead and put your 5 screws in the top. And there you go. There is the fully built Dolphin 1/Wild Willie frame. Now, I personally think that this is a fantastic frame. I don't think I'm going to be swapping out all my Freestyle rigs to this frame. I do personally prefer things about the SKITZO slightly more. I do like that it's a true X on the SKITZO. I also prefer the amount of motor protection that is on the SKITZO arms that is just not here on the Dolphin frame. However, for cinema photography, I do think the Dolphin frame has the SKITZO frame beat. The fact that you can change your camera angle really allows you to slow down your flying or speed it up for whatever situation you need. Also, the innovations of putting the arms on the inside of the stack and having taller standoffs give you more room to work in here. However, the CG should be about exactly the same because these are 27 mil standoffs. This right here is sitting at 5 mils, so the motors are sitting at 22 mils, and on the SKITZO frame, the motors are underneath a 2 mil plate, so the motors are sitting at 22 mils from the top plate, or where your battery is going to be mounted. So the CG should be almost the same. Again, the only difference is that this is a squashed X, which is what I don't prefer about it, or squashed X. However, I digress, and the way that the firmware works nowadays, or not the firmware, the software and all the programming works nowadays, it's very hard to even tell the difference between a true X and the PID tune. Other than that, I do really like that they put all their press nuts on the top plate. With the SKITZO frame, this bottom plate, which is really strong, and I have yet to break the bottom plate. I've broken every other part on this frame, but the bottom plate is the most expensive piece because it's a large piece of carbon with those press nuts. On this frame, since that piece of carbon is smaller, it brings the price down on that specific piece, and it also makes your bottom plate not as expensive since there's not a whole bunch of press nuts in it. All in all, this is definitely an innovation over the SKITZO frame, and at $35, I highly recommend this frame for beginners or intermediate people if you're trying to do cinema photography. this frame is one of the best all-around frames you can get, especially at the price. However, I do have two SKITZO frames. They do have the exact same lifetime warranty as this frame, and since I already have the SKITZO frames, I'll probably be flying them. But if I was just getting into this hobby, the Dolphin one is where I would start, and it's where I would recommend you guys start as well. Thanks for staying until the end of the video. I really appreciate all of you guys who have been with me for this long. However, I do have a goal of hitting 200 subscribers by the end of the month. So if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and help me hit my goal. Also, when I do hit 200 subscribers, we are going to be doing another giveaway. So make sure you stay tuned for that. In the meantime, feel free to check out one of these other videos I have up there. And happy flying, guys, and stay safe. See you in the next video.